We want to discuss now the last two talks. I would like to start with Dr. Giacchetto. Dr. Giacchetto, are you there? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
you
am here.
started your talk, to my opinion, very well, because you just said alcohol is the bad guy. But then during the talk, you just forgot that. I think. And the problem is always, whether all these NASH patients are, people who really drink every day, in Italy by lunch or by even in the morning, but by lunch and dinner, you get half a bottle of Avola, Nero d'Avola, for example, and that's normal. So would you suggest to introduce a test for alcohol, for the, for alcohol consumption? Because everybody, when you tell you, oh, you're sick, did you drink alcohol? Everybody tell you, no, I no alcohol at all. So it would make sense nowadays where we try to cancel the word alcohol because it is stigmatizing. So would you support the idea to say, let's
Yeah,
make a test?
yeah, yeah, but it's very difficult because I think it's very problem, and we it's must to have a national policies for a lifestyle. And in a liver transplantation setting, we see every day young people with acute liver failure to alcohol. So it's very national policies, a very national problem, because we must to educate to lifestyle and to improve the risk factor of every day.
I agree with you, but doctors are taking the opposite way. They just cancel the word alcohol for their definition. So I think this is not the right direction. Just because somebody wants the word metabolic instead of alcoholic. They want metabolic because you can use pills and I don't think, this is my opinion, this is that this is the right direction, because even people with bariatric surgery can continue to drink, because it's a fluid. They don't feel, you don't need a big stomach for getting your daily, this was just a discussion because I found your introduction really to the point. It was, alcoholic liver disease was the before the viruses came, was the main cause of liver disease. Now we are going in the same direction, so we don't have that many. You said that it was true, not so many viruses anymore. And so you go back to the 60s, to the 50s, to the 40s, and this should be made clear. Otherwise, there is no lifestyle change. And the Mediterranean diet, if you tell somebody you now have to eat this, without alcohol, actually we don't know. If you don't are overweight, but you drink alcohol regularly, I don't know if you have the same risk of cancer development than if you are overweight plus alcohol and fructose, because alcohol and fructose together are, synergistic in damaging.
Yeah, it's very big problem because for the viruses we have on national policies with the new therapy for hepatitis C that is very well done and reduce the incidence of cirrhosis to virus hepatitis. But now the problem is the metabolic problem, and it is the an European metabolic problem. So now we are focused on educate and produce new policy to reduce the impact of this problem, because in the next year the first cause of liver cirrhosis is metabolic cirrhosis, and the And it's very big problem for liver transplantation because obesity and metabolic syndrome is a very difficult to go to transplant. As if you go to the liver transplantation with obesity, the risk is the double. It's the double for infection, for pulmonary infection, for the cardiovascular event. So it's a very big problem, and it is necessary not only the bariatric endoscopy or bariatric surgery, but educate to a national program to reduce the impact of metabolic syndrome in the people.
But you know, Lollobrigida will tell you that you are not the patriot if you start to criticize the wine, you know, the Italian wine. You're not the patriot. Stop it.
No. It's okay. Yeah,
No?
but you reduce the problem, the wine, but it's a metabolic problem. So it's very important national policies to educate to risk factor and to lifestyle factor.
But you know, with addictions, it's difficult to educate. When they, you know, we have food addiction in addition to alcohol and cigarette
No,
addiction, because
because
these are all addictions.
I think because the problem is that liver cirrhosis in the idea of people is only hepatitis B and hepatitis C, but now the problem is not viruses, but we can focalize to another problem. It's a metabolic problem, and it is we can help about the not only the specialist doctor, but to the resident doctor about educate the people that alteration of metabolic syndrome is the first cause of liver cirrhosis, of hepatocellular carcinoma without cirrhosis. So it's very important to educate that the cirrhosis is not only hepatitis B or C, but if the metabolic syndrome is the first cause.
Thank you. I have now another question, a question to Dr. Musso, and this is a recurrent question for me. What is aggressivity of a tumor? So how would you define, let's say, you know, how can you say that HCC is more aggressive than another one?
Thank you for the question. Yes, the first measure of aggressiveness in HCCs is its capacity to recur after resection, for example, also the speed of growth. But in molecular terms, we may estimate aggressiveness through histological pattern, for example, low differentiation, Edmondson score 3, 4, but also at the molecular level by the expression of stem progenitor markers such as CD44, SOX9, CD90, or other stem cell markers. These are both measures to estimate aggressiveness. I don't know if I answered to your question.
Did you try to let's correlate your subtypes with chromosomal aberration types?
We haven't published that yet. The paper is in revision. We have been studying the subclass of HCCs mutated for beta-catenin, and we identified two subclasses of different aggressiveness. So the first thing that we looked at was chromosomal aberrations and mutations, and there was no difference in mutation in both groups. However, we found the difference in some epigenetic markers in both subclasses. And that's why we are studying at present in Hepatitis cells of different stages of differentiation. We are studying the epigenetics, and we find data with correlate quite well with the heterogeneity of hepatocellular carcinomas.
I don't know whether anybody else has another question. Otherwise, I would ask another question which arises for me. It's the zonation of a tumor. So I thought that, you know, when you have cirrhosis and the so-called regenerative nodules, they have lost the zonation. So the zonation, that means a different expression, quantity of expression of genes in different areas.
Yes.
Now it would disappear, and you will have a maximal expression of all the genes because you know the hepatocytes have to have this, you know, since the amount of functional tissue is reduced in cirrhosis, so that the surviving cells are all maximally activated. So you know the zonation would disappear because the gene expression of all the genes is upregulated.
Yes.
So I try to understand.
Yes, this is partially true. I mean, some cirrhotic nodules have lost their zonation, but others, according to their vascular flow, you know that zonation is in part determined by the vascular flow, and when we have a vascular flow which is poor in oxygen, that set up a perivenous zonation with beta-catenin activation through the secretion of Wnt9A and Wnt2. So some cirrhotic nodules can be zonated around the vessel with immunolocalization for glutamine synthetase, which is a very good marker of perivenous zonation. But some others not. And going now to the tumor, to hepatocellular carcinomas, when we talk about zonation, is more of a transcriptomic program than of a histopathological architecture. I mean, tumors which have a beta-catenin mutation, so they express the perivenous metabolic program, they are still good, well or moderately differentiated. They have a very, very strong expression of glutamine synthetase and other perivenous markers, but they no longer show the portovenous structure. By definition, HCCs don't have portal tracts. On the other hand, periportal type hepatocellular carcinomas don't have periportal tracts either because they are hepatocellular carcinomas. They just express the default metabolic phenotype of mature adult hepatocytes. And sometimes, in some cases, is not much different from non-tumor cirrhotic or non-tumor liver, with expression of periportal metabolic markers, such as, for example, GLS2 or HAL, and mostly enzymes which are related to gluconeogenesis or amino acid catabolism. But it's not a histoarchitectural definition, is rather a transcriptomic program definition.